I suffer from a fairly well-known but understudied affliction known as Meniere's disease. It's an inner ear disorder that affects the middle ear, specifically the hearing and balance functions. Symptoms include tinnitus, a feeling of fullness in the afflicted ear, permanent hear loss, and debilitating vertigo attacks. I was diagnosed with it in 2000 at the age of 18 after suffering 2 years of horrible vertigo attacks. It was a pain to find a diagnosis, but once we did, my mom got us hooked up with a specialist that was able to somewhat treat it. Since that time, I have continued to have tinnitus and fullness, but the vertigo attacks have all but vanished. In fact, by the time this story happened in 2015, I have not experienced any sort of vertigo in over a decade. Enough of that though. As the story goes, I was working late into the wee hours of the morning when I decided to take a break and catch a smoke and take my dog out. Once we got outside and downstairs to the small grassy area next to my apartment building, I let my dog off the leash and popped a squat on the stairs and watched as she did her doggy stuff. By the time my cigarette was halfway finished, she had already taken a long leak and was now starting to make big sweeping circles looking for a place to park her poo. Knowing it would probably be a couple more minutes until she found her ideal spot, I just kept on smoking while I counted her laps. It was 10 at that point. As she does her weird little poop ritual, she'll make one big final circle outside of the area she's been stomping around before zoning in. As I watched her start to make her final sweep, she stopped dead in her tracks. About 20 feet in front of the trees in front of my apartment complex, I was about another 30 or so feet behind her location. But I can see from where I was sitting that her hackles had came out and her body was completely rigid. Knowing my dog like I did, she was about 20 seconds away from losing her shit and waking up half the neighborhood with her angry bark. I put my smoke out and started walking her way, softly calling her name. Usually, this is enough to break her focus and to get her to calm down. But that night, she was onto something. As I started getting closer to her, I noticed a change in my ever-present tinnitus. It had changed in pitch and became a lot louder. Louder than I remember it being in a long time. Another few steps, and I start to feel a weird sensation behind my left eyeball. It was not an unfamiliar feeling, but like the level of the tinnitus I have not felt in some time. I took another few steps where I came up to my dog and gently pet her back. As I did that, a piercing pain shot through the left side of my head. Once again, it was not an unfamiliar feeling, but it was something I have not experienced in some time, nor did I want to. It was the telltale sign that within the next 90 seconds, I was going to start my first vertigo attack in nearly a decade. I started to talk to my dog in a more stern tone and try to break whatever trance she was in, but she ignored me and continued to focus on the tree in front of us. Only now she was letting out a deep, guttural growl unlike anything I've ever heard from her before or since. Like clockwork, the pain behind my left eye and left side of my head abruptly ended, and I was hit with a wave of heavy vertigo. I hooked onto my dog's leash and stood up. When I did, the vertigo gave off the sensation that my brain had detached from the base of my spine and was free-form backflips into my skull. I had to fight to stay upright and keep my eyes from rolling back, so I had enough perceived balance to make it back upstairs. To do this, I focused on the tree that my dog had been so upset about, and that's when it decided to step out from behind the trees and into my view. What it was remains to be seen, but I can tell you it was tall, taller than me, and I stand 6'7". It was very skinny as well, like unimaginably skinny. So skinny, in fact, that you wouldn't believe organs could fit inside its torso. Along with its odd stature, the thing's skin was this deep pitch black. Due to the color and the weird way it played with the poor lighting, it was impossible to make out any discernible facial or body features. From that impression alone, the only description I can muster up is that it looked like a poorly drawn 2D stickman that busted out of the page. My dog was dead silent at this point. She was shaking. We did not dare move, so I just stared at this thing and it looked back at us from maybe 6 feet in front of us. A few seconds more. And then the thing turned around and took off down the street away from us, running at an astounding speed. It moved oddly though, like it was gliding rather than running. Almost what a cross-country skier might look like, but even smoother and completely silent. It covered half a block in a matter of seconds before jumping over a 6-foot fence in a single leap, and vanishing into the night. A second after it vanished, my vertigo stopped. The tendonitis went down, and I was fine again. Well, mostly fine. I ended up doubling over and puking before walking my dog back. I don't know if my sudden vertigo attack was related to what I saw that night, but it certainly feels that way. Vertigo attacks are associated with Meniere's tend to last an hour at their shortest and 24 hours at their longest. My attack always averaged 12 to 16 hours. This attack lasted less than 2 minutes. Wow, what a truly terrifying moment. It's almost as if I was in OP's shoes because I could feel the sense of fear he was relating to. Let me know in the comment section below what you think OP saw that night. For some background, I live in the California foothills. My parents and I moved into this house from the city in the late 2017, after it's been sitting empty for over a year. The day we moved in, my mother and I arrived first to clean while my father and brother drove the moving truck. Right off the bat, I was uneasy, but tried to write it off. The property felt heavy, is the only way I can describe it. Some people on here describe the feeling of being watched inside their homes, but I had that feeling anytime I stepped outside. We were going to sweep and mop the floors, dust the baseboards and window seals, when I started noticing this white granular powder all along the baseboards, and the window seals. And the doorways? I immediately told my mother, who told me not to worry about it and sweep it up. By the time I had swept every room and cleaned off the window seals, I was certain it was salt. And a lot of it. Whatever. The people that lived here before were superstitious. Okay, I can live with that. We unpacked the truck over the next week. I was setting up my room when the next bizarre event started happening. Knocking on the windows. Always quick raps that sounded like someone knocking with their knuckles. It would happen often, on all the windows in the house, but when you would turn, no one would be there. You'd go outside and no one would be around the house. This escalated. My brother and I would walk the dogs around the property. They were older, small dogs who were always good-natured and calm, except from when they were outside this new house. They would growl, puff out their chest, and get extremely agitated. They hated being outside. Then, we started finding animal carcasses. They were always small creatures, rats, toads, bats, and the biggest one we ever found was a raccoon. The animals had been gutted. A single deliberate line down their torso, starting at their chest and ending near their rear. No organs were left. They looked practically mummified, like something had sucked the fluid and blood and organs right out of them. It was one of the most bizarre and brutal things I've ever witnessed. My brother would stay up late in his night on his computer every single night. He liked to game with his friends until the early morning hours. He does not spook easy, but on more than one occasion, I would wake up to him shaking me awake, terrified, saying something massive on 2 legs was walking around outside his bedroom window, which he kept open at night. He said it would walk up to his bedroom window and stop, and then he would look toward the sound and could hear it scrambling away. I never saw it with my own eyes and neither did he, but the motion lights outside would be activated every single time, leading to the woods near the back of our property. I know what you're probably thinking. All of this up until the point can be explained rationally. A crazy person living in the woods. Some neighbor messing with us. Well, that's what I told myself so I could sleep a little easier at night. Then, the banging started. It was so loud, it would sound like it was coming from everywhere at once. The walls would literally vibrate, picture frames rattling right off the walls. It was like something massive, stronger than any crazy person, was pounding on the exterior walls of the home. Always late at night, and always in more places than just one. I could never pinpoint the source directly. My brother and I would stumble out of our bedrooms petrified, and my mom would lead us to her room where we would stay after that. My dad would walk the perimeter of our property with his gun, but never found anything. No footprints, no people, nothing. This happened for probably 6 more months, and every time a major event would happen, my dad would walk the perimeter with his loaded rifle and come back with nothing. We felt like we were going insane. Then suddenly, it just stopped. The mutilated animals stopped appearing. I stopped feeling like I was being watched anytime I would go outside. My dogs stopped being so on edge every time I took them out. And the property itself became lighter. Like, it finally took a deep breath after holding it in for so long. I genuinely have no explanation or even a clue as to what the creature, being, entity even was. I'm just glad, for now, it seems to have moved on. Let me know in the comment section below if anyone listening to this has had any similar experiences. What do you think it was those nights in the woods? A creature? An entity? Let me know. If you enjoyed this truly creepy reading, let me know your support by pressing the like button right below this video.